From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, real therapist. Singular! We don't have Nick in here today, but we have real people here today. We are so excited. Today is a very special episode of Simulated. Emphasis on the Simulated, Board of Nevada. Couples Therapy. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas.
Thank you.
You guys are from the frozen Northlands?
Yes.
You guys are from the Northeast up there, and so is the whole region called New England? Is that how that works?
Only some of the states. New York isn't New England.
Yeah,
Oh,
New York
okay.
isn't New England.
They don't want to be New
They
England?
don't want to be New
Oh,
England.
okay.
So if,
They got their own football team.
Yeah, that's okay. So
It's
that's
in
how
New
you guys
Jersey.
divide this. Is
Right.
if you root for the Pats, you're New England. If you
Right.
root for anybody else, you're not.
yeah,
That's how it
exactly.
works.
Yep.
So you guys are from which part of New England?
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, as Patrick and I were. We should probably start with names. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea. I'm Jim. And what's your name, sir?
Patrick.
Patrick. So you guys are married.
Yes.
Yes.
And you guys have come down here to visit Vegas, and you guys are regular listeners to Pod Therapy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you reached out and said, hey, you know what? We're coming down. We wouldn't mind, having a conversation that looks a lot like couples therapy. And so the way that we set this up for all the listeners who are joining us now is I actually said, okay, I'll bite. We'll do this. We'll actually do this as like a session. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to engage each other as if I was your couples therapist for an hour, as if Board of Nevada, as if.
As if.
I have
Simulated.
plenty of things they have signed, waiving all liability. But yeah, so what we did in the lead up to this was I sent you guys a typical intake form that I actually use in my real practice. And you guys filled it out, and it was very simple, right? It kind of says, hey, what's the problem that we're going to talk about? What are some things that are happening today that are negative that you wish would change? And what would that look like if they changed in real life?
Yeah.
What are some of your strengths that you guys have to rely on? And then, what are some goals? Some things that we could really focus on. So it was fun because Patrick filled it out, and then he sent it to me, and then a little while later, he sent another one in which Chelsea corrected him. And this is how couples therapy always begins.
Yeah.
No,
you did it wrong.
Oh, it's my
Patrick.
favorite. So Patrick did it online, and he did it like through PDF. You edit it through PDF. But it's funny because when I really do have a couple and they're in the lobby filling it out with pen, there's all these Chris outs. Like they try to cross it out. And so it's always like one of them passed it to the other one. That person edited it.
No, don't talk about that. We can't talk about that.
Can we get a fresh one, Jim? Like I intentionally only put one page out there.
Yeah, right.
I actually haven't seen Patrick's.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
the one
yeah.
he
It's just a
filled
bunch of
out.
profanity. That's all it is.
And so while we were filling out the one together, like there were some of the pre-filled answers started like popping up, and he was like, "Oh,
Because
shit."
you fill it out in Adobe, and
It's a
you
good
start
thing
typing
we
one
waived
thing.
HIPAA early. Oh, man. And then I'd also sent you guys this thing about relationship needs, which I don't usually give to couples before I meet them, but it's really common that when I'm visiting with a couple and I'm trying to learn what's going on, I'm going to want to know about how they're happy in a relationship and what their needs are. And so that's something we might dive in toward the end. But here in the beginning, I'm going to really treat this visit today like it's a session for the most part, as if it was a session. As if it were,
simulated session.
even though we were talking right into microphones. But, whenever that happens in real life therapy, I do a lot of listening, and some questioning. And a lot of times I kind of draw information from the visitor, right? So I'm going to do that today. So today we're here with Chelsea and Patrick. How long have you guys been married?
5.5 years.
Oh, wow.
No.
6.5.
Oh, I think I know the problem.
It'll be
I think I
7.
found the problem. That was
Yeah.
easy.
October.
I keep joking. We're almost at the 7-year itch.
Oh, are you? Okay, so you
Yeah.
guys have been a couple for 7 years or married for 7 years?
Almost married 7 years.
Okay, almost married 7 years, and then dated for how long before that?
Like 2 years. Been together 9 years.
Yeah, 9 years.
Okay,
Almost exactly.
great. And just a heads up in the radio game. Yeah,
Yep,
always aim the
sorry.
mouth at the mouth. There you go. That's the listener's ear. Point at them.
Right.
So you guys have been together for almost 7 years. Patrick, how'd you guys meet?
We were both lifeguards
Oh, wow.
at a pool
Okay.
and taught swim lessons.
During the 2-week summer season of Massachusetts?
Yeah, so we do indoor pools.
Oh, is that how you guys do
indoor
it?
pools, and
Yeah.
then like the 2 months that it's actually warm outside, we were
Ah.
at camp too.
Okay.
Actually, Patrick, we met working, but it's because Patrick doesn't know how to read his emails.
Okay.
And he showed up for his shift at the wrong time.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was an accident.
Yeah. No,
We had never met before.
that was the
That was the
accident.
first
Everything
time
after
we
was
met.
on purpose.
That's right. Yeah. So you guys had the same shift. You guys were lifeguards. You met at the pool.
Yep.
That's a cool way to meet.
6 a.m. when
6 a.m. Who
Yeah.
the hell's
On a-
swimming at 6 a.m.?
Old dudes
the old
old
guys
dudes.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Speedos.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
from 20 years ago.
So, Patrick, you were like trying to pry Chelsea's eyes off of all these hot Speedo dudes.
Yeah, right.
And she was like, not now, colleague. I'm busy. Drinking in the eye candy. So you guys met there at work, and did it turn into a relationship right away? Or was it the kind of thing that, well, start
No,
to
it was like...
I was dating someone when we met.
Great.
Yep.
Great. So Patrick's a homewrecker.
Yeah.
Very cool.
No, we were on our way out. I think we broke up maybe 2 weeks after Patrick and I met.
Okay. So you just kind of were in the orbit. She breaks up. How long before you made your move? Did you call dibs? That's what women really like that. When they say, I broke up with my boyfriend, and right when they're crying, you say, dibs! And they go, what does that mean?
So I joke that Patrick was my rebound.
Okay.
And I
Yes.
just couldn't get rid of him.
There you go. Yeah.
That was my intent.
So you broke up. You have this colleague. You guys are working together. Hey, he's here. Let's talk. The relationship starts. Here we are 7 years later.
Not that easy,
Fantastic.
but
Yeah.
Not quite that easy.
No.
Yeah. So we met 9 years ago. but
Oh, okay.
Almost married 7.
Got
so.
it. So you guys dated
2
for about 2
years,
years.
yeah.
Okay. And then you guys got married. You guys have any children?
yes.
We have 2. We have a 2.5-year-old and a 6-year-old.
2.5-year-old and a 6-year-old.
And if
Oh
you-
my goodness. Boys and girls, or what do you got?
Our oldest is a boy. Our youngest is a girl.
Oh wow. Okay.
And if you do the math, how long we've been married and how old our son is,
Aha.
Shotgun wedding.
Got it. Okay. So we got a 6-year-old boy, a 2-year-old girl?
2.5, yeah.
2.5. Wow. So is she talking?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Once that starts, it doesn't stop.
No.
So your kids are about 4 years apart.
Yeah.
My kids, I have a 9-year-old and I have a 4-year-old. So, and my oldest is also the boy, which is, I have mixed reviews about that. I feel like if the girl's older, then when the baby comes, that's like a living toy. And so there's
Yeah.
like, this is great. Like,
Right.
how can I help?
Yep.
But my son, he wasn't that interested, but like, he's useful. Like, he can go get things. Can your 6-year-old help? Can they like go get
He
diapers and
has
stuff?
like made it very clear that he is absolutely not going to help.
He's not involved.
Nope.
What is he, union?
Get the rat
So
out.
my kid, yeah.
I think maybe once he's grabbed a diaper for me when I've asked.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
He's-
Okay.
Yeah.
So 6-year-old boy,
Yeah.
and we got a 2-year-old little girl, and then you guys, kind of did the math for me. I'm a shrink. I don't do math. That's why
Yeah,
I got
right.
into this field, is I was told there'd be no math. So it sounds like we were pregnant. We
Yeah.
were
Yep.
dating. We've been dating for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
living
said,
together.
well, okay, this isn't terrifying. Yeah, we already live together. We've been dating. Let's have a baby.
We've been around kids.
Yeah.
Right?
We worked
right.
with kids all the time at
Yeah.
the pool, so
Okay. Yeah. And so then you guys went ahead and said, let's make it
Yeah.
official. Let's
Right.
put the rings on. Let's go for it.
well, there's some
A little bit of waggling in there too.
just trying to figure out what to do at 21, being pregnant with no
Yeah.
degree and working an hourly job that pays minimum-ish wage.
Right.
Right. I had just got my first office job, like right before she
Yeah.
found out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Lots were happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's no matter how much you plan for a baby, there is no plan. The
No.
plan goes right out the window.
Yep.
Nope, there's never a good time to have kids. You'll never
Yeah.
be ready.
And you know what's so interesting is that whenever you've lived like that and you've just had the kids, then you talk to friends and they're waiting,
they're
I'm
planning.
like, what?
and
Why?
you try to tell them like, hey, you will survive. Like
Right.
the kids
Yep.
don't need a lot. Like in fact, they can mostly just hang out with mom and survive.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
we
That's
can
pretty
make
much
it
all they
work.
need.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. If she's around, they're gonna be fine. You
Yeah.
know, but it's hard because a lot of people have that fearfulness and
Yeah.
like they're really nervous at first. So I imagine you guys were no exception. Young married couple, early 20s, and about what are your ages now, if you don't mind saying?
I'm 28.
29.
Okay, so 20 and
Almost
29.
30.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wow!
Yep.
Is this Vegas trip part of your like?
No.
No,
Okay.
June will
The
be
dirty
30.
30s coming up in
Yeah.
June.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. When I turned 30, I went off into the woods of Yosemite and just stared at the moon for like a long time. It was really bad. Like, it was very dark, but I'm still here. I survived. So you guys are in your late 20s. Are you done having kids? Open Q&A.
So
I'm done.
Patrick's done. He was
Okay.
done after 1.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he was one of 3. I was one of 4. I think when we originally started dating, we said we wanted like 4 kids. Or like I wanted 4, he wanted 2, and we agreed at 3 or something like that.
Okay.
And
now here we are at 2.
Here we are at 2.
And you guys are thinking, do we really want to go from man to man to zone defense?
Yeah,
And
right.
it's like, I don't know.
I don't want to hit the reset button.
So Patrick, you're saying it'd be great if we didn't do that.
Yeah.
And then Chelsea, what are you thinking?
Mixed
emotions about it?
I mean, it's when you know that it's your last baby, everything's a little bit like harder, but I don't think that like we're in a good space. Like not like that our relationship, we're just like, we just bought a house like 3 months ago and there's an extra room, but that's his office. Like we didn't accommodate for like a growing family.
Right.
Which is fine. And I think that 2 will probably be where we'll stay. But we always joke that like we got pregnant really young. Like by the time our friends are having kids, like if we had another, like we'd be
it's true. and so it's interesting because I also did that. You know, we had kids young. I got married at 20.
Yep.
And we had kids really young. And so but that's the benefit of it is like also like when you're done, it's like haha, like everybody else is like
everyone's going through what you went through a
they're
long
going
time
through
ago,
stuff
right?
in like their late 30s and you're like on a cruise.
Yeah.
My kids are great. Like,
right.
Your kids can babysit their kids. So that's the early in, early out. You know? But you know, it sounds like you guys are still negotiating that, and you know, here we are.
I don't think Pat's
having
open to negotiation.
Maybe not. That's fine.
But it's okay.
Yeah. So the topic has been addressed, but. You know, as you guys thought to yourselves, okay, you know, we'll go visit a therapist, we'll talk. You know, obviously it's all on the radio, so it's a little bit different. But what kind of topic was on your mind that you've been thinking, yeah, this has kind of become an area that we might want to address in our relationship?
So
if we were really in therapy, I'd say, what brings us here today?
So January sucked. Both my dad and Patrick's dad passed away 13 days apart. They're diagnosed. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 oral cancer in the summer. I think it was June. And Pat's dad, like literally 2 weeks later, was diagnosed with AML leukemia. And they just didn't know like what his prognosis was. Because statistically, like overall, there's a 25% chance of remission with AML. And so like we knew the odds weren't great, but just like to have them both get sick at the same time and then die 13 days apart.
Oh my
gosh.
We're trying to relocate at the same time too.
Right.
Sell our house, buy a house, start a new job.
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez.
And it was just, my dad lived down south in another state, and my husband's dad was only like a 30-minute drive. So my son, or both our kids, were very close with my father-in-law. And so not only was that like a huge loss for us, but just seeing the impact on especially our son was...
Gosh, that's horrible, guys. I'm so sorry. All at once in January.
And then...
Wow.
Yeah. His dad passed away and we moved out of state 3 weeks later.
Yep.
And that's, oh, wow. And then you guys moved.
Yeah.
We were selling our house, and my dad was like helping us through that process.
Yeah.
And
he helped us negotiate and get under contract with our house right before he passed.
Jeez. Yep. So then all that happens at once. And you're still very young, you know?
Yeah.
And like when you're losing parents in your 20s and you have your own kids, it's a lightning bolt. You start to feel like, am I safe? Are we safe? Because at some part in the back of your brain, your parents are that safety net. Especially whenever you're having kids and you're young and you're scared.
Yeah.
And then, like, they're giving you coaching and they're telling you how to get through it.
Yep.
And then every time you're like, what if I lose this job? And they're like, I won't let you starve.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm here for you. Like, these are my grandbabies. I love them. And when that suddenly disappears, and then for both of you, whose father passed away first?
Mine.
So her father passes away. You're both horrified. You're trying to comfort her, and then your father's passing away.
And... like my dad, we knew that he was like at the end, right before Christmas, we found out that like they were stopping all treatments and that he didn't have much left. And then Pat's dad was
still in experimental treatments. You know, we didn't know where things were.
And then he went into the ICU. They did his like last shotgun like treatment, and within like 45 minutes of them starting his last treatment, he was in the ICU, or starting on his way to the ICU, and passed away like 2 days later.
So you discovered both of their illnesses in January, and they passed away?
No. So we discovered them in like June.
So then within 6 months.
Yeah.
But January is when they both passed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So whenever, as a family, if one death happens, it shakes up the whole system, right? It affects everybody. And death is that. I mean, and grieving is always painful. And
Yeah.
But for this to happen at this level with both, I imagine that this would have shattered you guys in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
It did. Yeah, absolutely.
And people deal with grief in different ways, right? Because some people get angry, some people get sad, some people become anxious.
Yeah.
What has it been like for each of you in these last 4 months?
So outside of like dealing with grief, like I have depression and general anxiety disorder and panic disorder. So like
would those be things that you feel like those showed up in your life after the death? Or were they
no, like these are like from
they got worse.
Yeah, and so I just struggled. The year before, like a couple months before our dads got sick, I had started seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist, and so I was like on my journey to get like a good med combo because it had been time. It was well overdue. And then so like while they're sick, I'm working on my mental health, and just as I start to get at a good point, they both
then everything started
wow
getting worse.
So that derails everything.
Yeah.
And Patrick, here you are trying to hold it all together. You guys are changing houses, you're changing jobs, it sounded like at the time. You're watching her father pass, your father pass, trying to raise these two children, one of them very young. In the meantime, your wife is going through a lot of unique challenges that she's been working on. And you're thinking,
for a while,
it's getting a little bit better. This is good. And then the piano drops from the ceiling. And oh my God, this is all happening at once.
Yeah.
What was it like for you, Patrick? And how have you sort of processed this?
I just have a lot of anger.
Yeah.
That I don't know how to control.
It just turned into anger for you.
Well, and anger and sadness, like a roller coaster, you know.
And the anger is just so far left field for him. Like he's not an angry person, like ever.
When we think about that anger, so anger can look different ways for different people, right? I mean, we have low patience, and so like the kids keep doing their thing, and we're getting irritated, and we sort of explode, and we're like, gosh, I shouldn't have done that. That's one type of anger. Sometimes we also mean like rage, like
both.
I've
experienced both. Something will set me off, and then it's
like a trigger, and then it's just like it comes out. And it's interesting how you mentioned how there's anger and there's also sadness. Yeah. Because a lot of times we don't think about those being like kissing cousins, but they are. They
absolutely. Yeah.
Because we're sad in our rage, and a lot of times when we're stopping with the anger episode, we're immediately like withdrawn and sad and falling apart.
Yeah.
So Chelsea, you've seen that in him too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's been hard to hold it together in the aftermath. So here you are going through that kind of anger rage. Here you are going through depression, anxiety. Lots happening in the midst of all the grief.
Yeah. And then just trying to take care of each other, take care of our kids. And just like we're also still unpacking our house and moving.
In the midst of all that transition.
Yeah, we closed on our house in Connecticut on February 15th, and then we had to stay with friends for a month in Massachusetts before we closed in our new house. So like it wasn't even like, and this was after our parents had passed, so it was like our parents passed, we move, we have to stay with friends because house closing stuff doesn't not fun.
Right.
And then move basically twice.
Back to back. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's exhausting. And then with the kids too. Right. Yeah. I mean, being tired, being fatigued, and then going through all this. And what's interesting, and in a second, Chelsea, I want to ask some more detailed questions so I can understand, because when we use words like depression and anxiety, when we talk about a psychiatrist and seeing a therapist, that's great news for me. That teaches me that there's a lot of work you've already done and probably started to learn what solutions look like. But then the piano fell, and that kind of reboots everything, and it all gets weird again. How has some of that history of depression and anxiety affected the marriage? And I'm going to ask him that question too. But, from your point of view, how does it affect the way that you guys have as a relationship?
So, like, within the past couple of years, my anxiety has just been, like, at an all-time high. And then, like, you add everything else, just like moving is stressful.
Right.
Like
Right.
losing your parent stressful, losing an in-law stressful, and then I'm a stay-at-home mom, so being home all day with the kids, or my son goes to school, but being home with
but he just started. Yeah, 6 years old. He did kinder this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big relief, but still,
yeah,
it's a lot going on.
It's just tough.
It is tough, but I think you said it right. It's training, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it's hard to bring your best energy to the relationship too. And I think as being young parents, that's tricky because you're putting so much energy in the kids, you're putting so much energy in work, and then you're both going through your own inward pain. The very last thing we think to address is like, oh, how's our relationship?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just like you're holding on and you're just trying to get through
the day, right?
Yeah.
From the beginning of the day to the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to hold it all together, and it's hard. And sometimes we don't check on each other. Sometimes we don't even have the ability.
Yeah, I think that Patrick and I, in a way, are really lucky that, like, things are so good with us that, like, we have an understanding, like, we just lost our parents, so we understand that.
Right.
And it's just, like,
It's a mutual.
so kind of, like, our relationship, like, everything's good. We know that. And this is a really shitty part of it.
Right.
But things will go back eventually.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, Patrick, I had teased that I was going to ask you this question, but I really was. She was saying that her anxiety, her depression became these things that added to her lack of energy in the relationship in the house, and she had to attend to herself. And she's like trying to like avoid triggers and just self-manage. And, did some proactive things, did go get medicine, did go get therapy, like did do some things that are appropriate and do make a difference. Right. But, if I was being honest with you, and if you're honest with me, what was it like for you to kind of love a person who's going through all that?
Through it. I
Confusing,
struggled.
I'd imagine?
I struggled with depression in college, with suicidal ideation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, like, I myself have been on, like, a mental health journey, right?
Okay, yeah. So you related.
So yeah, I understood it at points, right? Like you're going through your mental health issues, but I still have to like get the kids ready for bed, and the second I get home, she just needs to check out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because it's like she's there, and I think that's one of the things that I've seen a lot of couples talk about. There's an interesting dynamic to this because you'll be working and it's like, the job day is done.
but I have a job when I get home.
Yes.
Right?
And so there's this feeling of like, I can't wait to get home and have respite and recharge.
No, I get home
but
and
your spouse is thinking, I can't wait for him to get home so I can detach from these kids and have a break.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to go to the bathroom now. Like not have little fingers going underneath the door.
Right.
Please leave me alone for 5 seconds. And so that's an interesting dynamic too.
Yep.
You come home and like, okay, it's dad mode and
rage clean. I get angry and I just clean, and then I clean and then I get angry at her, and then I get angry at myself, and I get angry at the situation, and then after that it was like going up, and then after that I go down. I'm really sad about everything. I can't believe I just got so angry, and
on top of all of it, it's a Tuesday. Right?
Right. And I'm not in Vegas, right?
Yeah, I'm not in Vegas. I'm in Massachusetts. What's that like for you, Chelsea? I mean, he'll come home and he takes his duty. He gets up and does it, but he's angry and then sad.
Yeah. So Pat is, and always has been, like, the best dad, always. And the kids always, like, come first for him, which is, like... Obviously, when I need to come first, I do. But he does really, like, do the dad gig well. But it's the rage cleaning things, new. Which, our house is messy and crazy because we just moved and have our stuff still in boxes.
Right.
And so when I need to, like, decompress, like, I'll sit on my phone and, like, play Spider Solitaire.
Sure.
Or put headphones on.
Yeah.
But I do like being around, even if I'm not, like, checked in.
Right.
But so if Patrick is, like, rage cleaning, he just, like, gets so angry that I'm sitting there and not also rage cleaning.
Right.
It's better for her to be in another room.
Yeah.
Like, completely checked out. Like,
but if I'm cleaning up under your feet and you're
she's-
lifting them so I can clean the table,
right.
I hate you.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to flip the
I
desk.
don't want
right.
to hate you, but I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
And
like
I'd
exact
tell her, like,
situation happened like
Right.
probably last week. He started rage cleaning and he was like, "You should just go in the bedroom before I get really upset with you." And I was
I
like,
don't want to be upset with you, but I'm going to be.
Right. Like
and
I'm boiling over.
that was like almost like the worst thing he could have said to me. It was not a good feeling, but
Yeah. What did it mean to you to be told, "Hey, go to the other room"? Did you read
Like-
something into that?
just that like I don't want you around, and
That's not what I meant.
and it's not what he meant, but
Sure. But that's what it felt like.
yeah, it
at
just
the
felt
time.
like, get away from me. I can't
Right.
deal with you right now.
So it's kind of like, hey, disappear. In his mind, it's I'm irritated.
I don't want to yell at you.
Mostly at the house
Yeah.
and these children and doing things. And I just want to remove you from it to declutter and simplify this environment. And I'm angry. But how you'll interpret it in that moment is like, you're dismissive of me.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
telling me you can go now.
Yeah.
You don't want to see me. You just got home.
Yeah, like I do. I like enjoy like when he comes home. It's nice to see each other for
Yeah.
a few minutes before I do check out.
Right. And it's interesting too, because I totally relate to what you guys are talking about, because there's this thing, I wish there was a word for it, but it's the parenting brain, and like how one of us has to like be the on duty
Oh,
The
well,
default
lifeguard.
parent.
Working as lifeguards. you
There
know?
it
Like,
is.
all right,
Because like
you're
there
on
might be
duty.
2 lifeguards, but one of them's like at the soda machine.
Here's the whistle, right?
Yeah. And
here's,
one of
here's your
you are officially
rescue
on
tube.
duty. Like
Right.
you knight them, and you're like, you've got the con.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. Like you're in charge now. You've got this, and like that's how it is for parents. I think is a lot of times we're thinking, okay, well, we were both there, but like you were the in charge one,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
especially when they're that little, because it's like if they disappear for 5 seconds, it's like
Forget about it.
anything could happen.
Yep.
So who's watching the kids, right?
Our 2-year-old, her nickname is Trouble.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Climbing on things,
Oh.
jumping off the couch.
Isn't that weird?
From
My
one piece
son
of furniture.
didn't do any of that. My
Yeah.
son was cool. He just like
He was
played with
great.
cars. He was just doing his thing. My daughter's like, "Dad, look at this. I'm in the vents." I'm like, "How the hell did you get up there?" It's just daredevil, like no
Yeah.
fear. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Oh my
this is
gosh, our daughter's
ridiculous.
the same.
Oh my
She's-
god. Well, hopefully she chills out, because my 4-year-old's going on 14, and it's just like sassy, like she's the
Don't
boss.
tell me these things. Like I
Boss
know,
of the
like
house.
every year it just gets like
Oh
different.
my gosh.
I almost, it's not like worse, but it's
Oh, yeah.
worse.
It's oh yeah. Oh no. You have not seen it. Well, the good news is this ain't your first rodeo. Like you guys have the 6-year-olds, so
Yeah.
you know that it's not the terrible 2s, it's the terrible 3s. Like that's
Yeah.
whenever they're big enough to do things. And
The
like
teenagers.
oh yeah, they're horrible.
Yeah.
They're just horrible humans. And then when they're 4, they start to like chill out, but ha ha ha. So that adds to the pressure of it. And then this creates like these dynamics. When you guys have conflict, or whenever you're feeling angry at the other person or feeling resentful, are you guys the type, and maybe you're different, but some people want to talk and they're like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about this. Let's get together." And some people are like, "Absolutely not. I need to get away from you." And like, that's how we're going to deal with it.
So we have a safe word.
Ah,
Yes.
sexy. This took a turn, but let's follow it.
So like usually I don't know, it goes back and forth, but usually when one person wants to talk about something, like it is the worst time to talk to the other person and they're just not
Yeah.
ready. And so peanut butter.
Okay, so
Not right now.
That means I'm calling pause.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk, and the other person's receptive to that and saying, "All right, we're tabling it."
Yeah.
But I'm also receiving that to mean eventually will
We'll talk about it when the kids are in bed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
and we
when
have
anything gets
a
done.
minute to talk and to
Yeah.
breathe, right?
And then I just want to go to sleep and
Yeah, and
Don't wanna
this,
talk.
This is that hashtag parent life, man.
Yeah.
Because if you try to have a real conversation when the kids are running around, that's pointless because it will be interrupted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to stay in the emotion and follow it through.
and you don't want your kids hearing half the
Yeah,
stuff,
you don't want
especially
them to know. Yeah. But then
recently.
whenever you get to the end of the night, now you're putting them in bed and now you're tired. And then it's like, "Hey, we needed to have that fight." And you're
She's
like,
tired, and I'm a night owl.
"Are you
so
a night
I
owl?"
just
Yeah.
I have a sleep disorder. I have narcolepsy.
Do you
and
really?
Yeah. It's not like the movies. It's not as glorious.
What's it like in your world?
Excessive daytime sleepiness.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've done sleep studies. That's the only reason why I know this. But I
Mm-hmm.
just don't go in I go from being awake into REM sleep very quickly, so I don't have those like beautiful ups and downs for all the sleep cycles. It's just like awake to very deep sleep.
Right.
And which isn't deep restorative sleep. And
right. So it's not replenishing you.
yeah, so I'll go to sleep, get
Wake up
13 hours
tired.
of sleep, and wake up more
It's
tired.
like
than I went
living
to
your
bed.
whole life at like 50% battery, right?
Well, so like what I've read is to explain to someone who doesn't have narcolepsy, the tiredness you feel is for someone who doesn't have it like 72 hours of staying awake. So if you stayed awake for 72 hours, like that would be the equivalent of like how I can feel sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not always like that tired, but happens.
So, you know, I'm going to pivot over here to Patrick again, because when I asked, hey, how does her anxiety and depression affect you? You had a very generous answer in your pocket. You were like, hey, you know, I could relate. I've been there, so I try to accommodate it. But, you know, you guys are co-parenting. You're trying to live life, and she's also, you know, going through that as well. This puts pressure on you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's
It's hard to, you know, be there for
Sure,
her
yeah.
when there's a lot of other things going on, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm needy.
Yeah.
I'm really needy.
Are you needy?
Yeah. Like,
Okay. So she's like, talk to me, like as soon as you get home, that kind of thing?
well, yeah, because I have an adult conversation all day.
Right, yeah.
But
Please,
also-
for the love of God, talk to me about anything that's not Legos. Or,
Or just like sit down next to me.
yeah.
We can-
Quality time is one of her love languages.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so then you get home and it's like, okay, I'm trying to solve problems right now.
Yeah.
But then she'll say, hey, let's talk, let's connect.
Can you sit down for a minute?
Yeah, can we
The
take
dishes
5
can
seconds?
wait.
The dishes
right?
That's
can
what I-
wait.
yeah.
And you're like,
You know
no,
me
they
well.
really
I'm like,
can't.
no,
Like,
I need to clean. I need
I
to
need
clean.
to just get all this done so I can be restful.
Yeah.
If all this is in front of me, it's hard for me to relax.
Or after the kids go to bed, I don't want to clean.
Right.
Yeah.
Now
Or, like
I want
when I have the energy, I get home, I want to
get it
do these
done.
things, and
And
she's
then-
like, sit down, relax, talk to me. You know.
So, you know, Patrick, I want to zoom in on you for a second because we talk about that anger and we talk about sometimes not, you know, wanting to connect. How are you at sharing your feelings in the relationship?
I'm horrible.
You're bad at it, so Chelsea's got to pick you apart and go, but how do you really
she's-
feel about this? And you avoid it?
He just bottles everything
Bottle
up
it up
until
it explodes.
and then he's a mess.
Well, okay, and so, but that's an interesting thing, right? Because I think a lot of times people know a therapist is going to talk about, hey, let's talk about your feelings.
dive.
Let's got to come in. But at the same time, I think I understand what you mean by that. A lot of times, and it isn't just a male thing, but, you know, sure, there's a stereotype about it. A lot of guys feel like they have to be self-reliant, and it's like, well, we don't have time for my feels because I got to solve this thing. Is that how it is for you?
Sometimes until it gets out of control, and I just have to experience my emotion.
And then it all comes pouring out.
Crying on the kitchen floor.
Right. And it's like, oh, this is not very effective.
No,
like, I
right.
probably should have left. It's like the can of soda that's been shaken up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's a slow way to open it.
Yeah.
Like, this was not it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Daddy's eyes are just sweating. It's fine.
Yeah, though.
So what's that like for you, Chelsea? I mean, how do you, it's been 7 years. How have you managed that part of the relationship and trying to get things out of him before it comes to a head?
I guess it's frustrating because I do try and get things out of him before he explodes because I know like it's gonna just end up with him having all the feels all at once and I know it's just not good to bottle things up all the time and like talk about things, and especially like talking about his dad has been really hard, and I know that there are a lot of feelings about his dad that he's still not ready to talk about.
Sure.
And
It's all still pretty fresh, man. It's only been 4 months.
So fresh.
yeah. But then it explodes and I'm like, well, like just talk to me. Tell me like how you're doing. Like what can I do? But
I don't
he's
know. When she asked me that question, like,
So it's
if I
at the
knew.
wrong time.
Right. No, Patrick, you're onto something there. Because when somebody asks, hey, how are you? Hungry.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden something triggers us, and then the dam breaks, and all the stuff that was behind it falls out, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, she mentioned that about you, that there's a lot still there with Dad. Obviously, guys, it's only been 4 months. And, you know, you guys have used that word grief, you know,
Yeah.
and talking a little bit about it. Have you guys looked into that at all and kind of gotten a little bit of an understanding of what grieving looks like? And
Like the 7 stages?
Yeah. I think there's 5. There's probably 7,
Yeah.
but I do the fast way. I ain't got time for 7. They're like, Jim, and I'm like, you need to wrap it up now. You've had plenty of stage 3. Move it on. But yeah, some of those things, we talk about, like there's this depression phase, there's a shock phase where we just don't know what's happened, and it's like it doesn't even feel like it's real, and you're just kind of looking around.
I think like it being like us being affected, like I was very close to his dad too, and so like us both being affected by it at the same time, and then going through our stages of grief at different paces at different stages makes it more difficult because I'm like, let's go.
Yeah. It's going to be, you don't know where you're at.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think a lot of times we don't understand about grieving is it's not like this linear 1, 2, 3 kind of process.
Yeah.
Like it's circular, and like you loop into it, and one day you're depressed, the next day you're rageful, angry, and the next day you're still in shock. And it's just all of it, right?
Yeah, and then just like with moving and making sure and then the kids, you just kind of have to bury that stuff for a little bit because life doesn't stop.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that for a second, because life doesn't stop. We bury stuff. Yeah. Besides the safe word, great job. What else have you guys done intentionally for your relationship over the last few years that, you guys have done to make sure that things are okay?
Me time, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I acknowledge that Pat, his way of decompressing is playing video games.
Okay.
And so he'll tell me, like, I need time to decompress. And I know that because for a long time it was like, oh, I'd rather, I was internalizing it as, oh, I'd rather spend time playing video games than spend time with you. Mm-hmm. But over the years, I've learned that it's just that that's how he decompresses.
I see. So you don't personalize it anymore.
Yeah. I try not to. Sometimes I do.
Sometimes.
But I try. It's been better.
Well, actually, here's how I find that out. Hey, Pat. So whenever you say, hey, I need to decompress, I'm going to hit the video games here, I'm going to chill out, does the air in the room change? Does it feel like the atmosphere of the house changed a little bit?
Completely.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay.
Her voice
that's
changes.
Fine. You do that if that's what you need to do.
Not always.
Not always. Sometimes more so than others. Mm-hmm. Other times she's like, totally. I get it. Go.
Sure.
Because I also I love me some trashy TV.
There
and
you go.
Patrick does not.
I'd much rather play video games, right? Than watch someone else.
That's how it works at our house, too.
Yeah.
My wife's upstairs watching her Hulu or watching whatever garbage is on.
Yep.
And I'm downstairs in the Xbox.
Yeah,
right.
What system do you play?
I'm a PC gamer.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
We just happen to own all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to dabble.
You got Xbox, right?
I'm not going to limit myself.
Yeah.
Do you own different kinds of makeup?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Hey.
Yours doesn't cost $300.
It does.
I think I found the sore spot in the conversation. So one thing I'm hearing in that, though, and Chelsea brought this up, is we're communicating some things more directly. We know how to say words like, I need to decompress, and how to communicate that need from your side, Pat, and then how to be receptive to that, and okay, here's the permission that we get if you use some of these words. Even like peanut butter, as silly as that is, it's a permission word, right?
Yeah.
It symbolizes, I can't have this conversation, but I'm not telling you no to the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the way out and come back to it.
Yeah.
And so you guys have some mutual understandings that you've developed over the 7 years.
Yeah.
What's another mutual understanding that you guys have developed as far as how you communicate or what something means or when you need to take care of the other person?
I think just a lot of the love languages, knowing
that
what
helps.
His love language is and what my love language is, and then doing those things. So he rage cleans, and it even though I get upset because I know that it's out of like an emotional, it's coming from an emotional thing. Like one of my love languages is acts of service. So yeah, I do appreciate it, but I find it hard to appreciate when like
it's not done in a spirit
out.
of love. That's a very different thing.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah, it's like, thank you for doing this. Like, you're not welcome. Go to the other room.
Right.
Where is Harvey Dent? And so the whole thing gets out of control. I gotcha. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up love languages. We've talked about it on the show, and it's always neat whenever a couple knows about that. I think it's an advantage.
Yeah.
I think it's good to know that about yourself. It's good to know that about your mate. So you guys have read the book, or at least dabbled with the concepts. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you mentioned that one of yours is acts of service, and I think, Pat, earlier you had mentioned another one of hers is quality time.
Yep, those are the two.
Okay, what are yours?
Words of affirmation and physical touch.
Okay, yeah. So let me ask you this, though. Knowing that is one thing, cool, yay.
Yeah.
Doing something with the information is a little bit different. And so one of the concepts that the book kind of talks about is, okay, now that I know this, do I try to do anything with it? Like, do I make it an intentional thing?
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys have done in the relationship? And if so, how?
Yeah. No, we, like, words of affirmation is not anywhere on my love language scale. And so I do make an effort when he just, like, happens to, like, throw the dish in the dishwasher, or just like do something for me, like to make a point of saying like, hey, I really appreciate that you did that for me. And I
need to hear it, otherwise it doesn't mean, like, me
and
doing it is
weightless,
I know. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then on the other hand, like, I also know that since his love language is words of affirmation, when I hear him telling me words of affirmation, I know that's him expressing his love to me, even though it's not
the right language.
How long in your marriage before you guys discovered this?
In premarital counseling.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I didn't figure it out until I think I was married for 2 years.
Yep.
And my wife is just like you. She's quality time and then acts of service. And I'm just like you.
Yeah.
And so it's affirmation, physical touch. And so we were drifting apart, and we couldn't figure it out because it's like, we're desperately in love, but we don't feel in love.
Yeah.
And it's really weird, and you start to feel like really cold inside. But that's how it would be, is I'd get home. We didn't have kids yet. And she'd be like watching her show, and I would like go to the computer and get on MySpace and Friendster. Because like, I don't need to like sit with you to show you I love you, but then she feels abandoned, and I'm like, you really want me to sit here and just watch like
trashy TV?
We're watching like Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're gonna do right now.
Yeah, we accommodate. He gets a laptop.
That's right. And comes near you.
Yes.
But he's in your orbit.
Yep.
And there's just the presence.
It works.
And my wife was the same thing, where affirmation, what's that? But like, she had to actively think, okay, what does that look like? Instead of, sometimes set a reminder and say, okay, like send him a text or something. Hey, thank you so much. You work so hard for our family, that kind of thing. And, then you're on cloud nine. You're like, hell yeah.
Right. I love getting that text.
Yeah. It's always funny because anytime somebody has words of affirmation, I always look at their spouse and be like, you got off so lucky. Words are free. You can they're free.
But sometimes
anything.
They're really hard to get sometimes, though.
They are hard. They
just
are
like
hard.
The small little words, right?
They are hard.
She doesn't think about them.
Yeah.
Because she's
they're not native. That's not.
She's more concerned with the action, right? Just
right.
Doing the action is good enough for her.
Yes. But yes. And what's interesting too is whenever somebody's love language is quality time, they draw near to you whenever you guys are in conflict. And if that's not your love language, you're like, go away. I need to go hide, and I don't want to talk to you. And it's not they don't love you, but it means a lot to them when you pull away. And that really does hurt them. And it's ironic because you don't intend any harm, do you?
No, not at all.
I saw you look at him whenever I said that.
Well, it's just funny because, like, his office is downstairs, so in our finished basement, so it feels like a million miles away because I can't, like, just scream for him and he'll never hear me because it's not behind a shut door. But I was also laughing because his office has a nickname. It's called the Rage Room.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was from... The
previous
not
owner.
The previous owner, but the owner before them.
It was already called that.
Yeah. There's like, I don't know, someone like took a knife to the door on the inside.
Oh, wow.
And it's like a solid wood
sure.
door. And so
they have those stab marks in there.
Yeah, and so when our previous owners bought it, it was like there was something on the room that said rage room.
That's the rage room. Oh my gosh. Well, you know, it's interesting too, because I'd given you guys this little survey, and it's about needs, you know, which is the same basic genre of ideas like the love languages. The needs are a little bit different. Because with needs, like with love languages, this is how I express and this is how I understand, right?
Yeah.
And Chelsea said it very well, because she said, well, I had to learn that when he is complimenting me, when he is praising me, that is an act of love. Yeah. It's not just this passive, like, you know, hey, your hair looks good, thanks. Like, you know, and that's something I had to learn with my wife, too. Yeah. Or she needed to learn about me, is because if I'm praising you and saying you look good, I'm not your editor who's like checking on how, like, just so you know the outfit works. You know, like, that's not what I was doing. I'm feeling love in my heart, and this is how it's metabolizing. Yeah. Like, but she would be very passive. And I wonder if you felt like that, too, Pat, is sometimes you'll give them that compliment, and they're like, thanks, and they don't care. And you're like, I just gave you pearls. Like, how did you...
she would always say, you know, actions speak louder than words.
And you're like,
and I'm like, no, words speak more than action.
Actions don't speak. Actions do.
Actions do nothing. Yeah, if you don't say it.
Go sweep the floor. Let's see if I can hear you upstairs. Oh, yeah. That's not a thing. But no, the concept of needs is a little bit different, and I want to kind of introduce the concept because you guys did fill it out, so I want to take a look at it. But, you know, the idea of the needs, paradigm is, okay, stepping a little bit to the side from the love languages idea. Here we are. We have these needs in relationship. Now, there's like 10 on this list, and I told you guys, hey, pick 5, because there's, you know, usually 5 that are like your top ones. Patrick's first one, I was like, just ranked them all. He was like, okay, because we all need some of them sometimes, right? Yeah, right. But then we kind of picked the top 5, and the way that we try to think about them is the same way that humans have biological needs, right? So, like, if we want to survive, we're going to need to drink water, as you guys are currently doing. You're drinking your bottle of Evian, which is totally fine. It illustrates my point. I wish that there was a visual in the show, but there's not. So take it from me, listeners. There's an Evian bottle. But yeah, if you don't drink water for 72 hours, you will die. In Las Vegas, that's much shorter, so please stay hydrated. Even in May, you know, it's not very hot out there today, but you definitely need to. You need food, you need water, you need air, you need shelter, you need sleep, right? And if we take away any of those things, we can kill you, but, like, not as fast. Right?
Yeah, right.
Like, if I take away your air, I'm going to jail. Yeah. Right? If I take away your shelter, I'm just a landlord, okay? even though I may have inadvertently killed you and put you out there to die of the elements, I'm not getting tried for murder. So when we think about relationships, we try to think of it the same way. Like, yeah, you have needs, and you technically need all of them, but you don't need them all at the same amount, right? You have a $100 need that's, like, you know, really valuable, and then you have like a $1 need that's like, yeah, that matters to me, but, like, I can go a long time without it. So I want to read off the needs, just so that the listener has a general idea of what they are, and then I want to see if you guys can guess what each other wrote, okay? So here were the needs in no particular order. The first one is affection, and affection is usually kind words. It can be cards, gifts. It can also be physical, like hugs and kisses, but it's usually non-sexual. It can be holding hands, rubbing a back. It can be a phone call, hey, how you doing, a text, loving expressions. All that is what we might call affection. The second one is communication, talking about things. It could be anything. Talking about the day, your feelings, your plans, topics. Undivided attention, though, you know, being understood and connecting. The third one is honesty and openness, and that's just revealing, knowing how the other person is feeling, knowing their stories, knowing their day, knowing what's coming, knowing their plans, feeling safe with them, truthful, honest. The fourth one is financial support. That's all about the Benjamins. It's living comfortably, having what's needed, some of what's wanted, just feeling safe and provided for. Family support is spending time with the family, liking the other person's family, being involved in them, seeing your mate love on the kids can sometimes be really fueling. Sexual fulfillment is exactly what it sounds like. It's all the dirty stuff where you scream peanut butter. But I want to point out, sexual fulfillment's not just getting laid. And it's important for me to point that out. It's fulfillment, right? Yeah. And that's a different thing for different people. So it's more than just, what are you talking about? We had sex this year. It's more like, no. We had intentional sex, and you felt fulfilled by it and wanted and desired. Recreational companionship is having fun. It could be playing Xbox together, going on hikes together. It could be learning something together, doing things together. It's just playing, having fun in that way. Attractive mate is just being wary of appearance, things like clothing, hair, just making sure that the other person looks good. Sometimes that fuels us up too, is just feeling like, wow, they look great today. Domestic support is whenever we have a peaceful home. So the house is put together. There, if you cook for me, I feel very loved. When the laundry's done, it's kind of like tasks, but like taking care of the kids, picking up shopping, solving problems, coming home and knowing that it's a safe and like sanctuary space sometimes. And the last one is affirmation, which is pretty straightforward. Compliments, not being criticized, being made to feel respected, feeling encouraged, supported, uplifting, cheered for, and admired. Okay, so those are the 10, and I sent you guys both a sheet, and I'm holding them right here. This is my prop audio. And so I'm holding Chelsea's, okay? So actually, Chelsea sent them to me via email, and I filled them out. So this is in my handwriting. I'm sure yours is prettier.
No, it's not.
It's pretty hard to beat a dog. Mine is hieroglyphics. But good for you. If you can beat me, that's pretty impressive. Also, you should definitely work on that. So as we look at this one, here's what I want to try to look at here. So let's ask Pat. So Pat, we're looking at her top 5 needs, and actually I'm going to give you your paper back.
That'd be great, because I don't remember them off the top of my head.
And here you go. And actually, Chelsea, I'll give you yours. Okay.
Thank
so,
you.
Patrick, and we'll go back and forth. But Patrick, when you think about her, I have these ranked by dollar signs, right?
Yep.
So I imagine it like you're making a deposit into their bank account, right? Because throughout the course of the day, we withdraw funds, right? We withdraw love, like just the irritability of each other. We pay bills to live here. The kids are in the way. We withdraw, and just take money away. There's like a cost that comes out of the love bank just for being alive and being married. So we have to make these intentional deposits, right? And so what I've done on the page is said, hey, let's imagine like one of them is worth $1 and then $5, then 10, then 20, then $100, right? So what is her $1 need? So that would mean out of the 10, this is her number 5 in her top 5. Her 5th most important need. What do you think it is?
What do I think it is?
What's your guess?
I guess sexual fulfillment.
Okay, so you'd say it is a need.
It is a need.
It's in that top 5. Yep. It made it, but I'd say it's the one that she could go the longest without and not die, right? So it's like shelter.
Yeah,
like she could survive for a while, and eventually, though, it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
All right, number 5, was it sexual fulfillment?
No. It wasn't.
What was your number 5?
Communication.
Communication was number 5. Pat, does that surprise you? Do you think communication is going to be higher?
I thought it was going to be higher.
I thought it was going to be higher, too. Yeah. And I did write them down, but I did not memorize them, so I'm sitting here, too, so trying to figure it out. So your 5th most important need, Chelsea, is communication. That's something that's really important to you. How do you feel loved when Pat communicates to you? In your marriage, what does it look like whenever he's meeting that need?
Just like I said earlier, adult conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just having that quality time together or talk. And just like being able to know that he's listening. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is just like as part of communication, it was just like, I always tell him like, hey, it'd be nice to get a text during the day to know that you're thinking of me, because he's a terrible texter.
Mm-hmm. I am.
And I am speedy thumbs.
Okay. Yeah. But that's a good example.
Yeah.
That if you did get like a little text where he's like, hey, just thinking about you. Hope you guys are doing great. Love you.
Or just
that would really boost you.
Yeah.
That'd be a little deposit. Like, yep, the bank account went up a notch. Okay, very good. All right, so what do you think his number 5 is? His 5th most important need. What do you think it would be?
Attractive mate.
You think it's attractive mate. What was it, Pat?
Domestic support.
Domestic support. Interesting. So your 5th most important need, the dollar need, it does count whenever this happens. It's meaningful. I can't go forever without it, but I can last a while without it. Domestic support. Whenever this need is being met in your marriage, what does it look like?
Dinner.
Okay. Okay.
Laundry.
Okay. So like those tasks.
Yeah, just like everyday household things.
Okay. They count. You notice it.
Yeah.
If you come home and something was done, or the dinner's ready or something, you feel like, oh, thanks.
At the times that I don't say those,
you'll notice it too.
She notices that I don't say it.
You didn't acknowledge it.
She's like, Did you see what I did?
I
Did you
don't
see
know
all
if
the
you
boxes
saw
I
this.
unpacked today?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I saw all the Amazon boxes. No, not those.
The 3 more that you brought into the house and stacked on the other one?
You got to get all those in, Chelsea, before he gets home. I just don't look at the app anymore. As long as I don't know, we're fine. That's our safe word, is Jim doesn't look at Amazon. That's our piece. Okay, so very good. So domestic support is that 5th one, and that's what it looks like. It looks like kind of those traditional things, and you come home and those little items are done, but it feels nice because it's like, oh, okay, thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Now I can just kind of put my feet up. Thank
Yeah.
you. And I receive it as love. That's really meaningful. Okay, let's go to number 4. So the $5 need, the 4th most important need. We're going to switch it up. I think I asked about hers first last time, so this time I'm going to ask Chelsea, what do you think Pat's 4th most important need was?
Communication.
Communication. Okay. Pat shakes it off. Swing and a miss. What was number 4?
Family support.
Family support. What does it look like in your marriage when this need is being met?
She's taking care of the kids. I mean, she's the primary caregiver for the kids, so just doing that for me.
Don't be changing your needs, Chelsea.
Oh, no, I'm writing down what his are.
She's taking notes.
Good girl. Yeah, take my pen, Pat. Get on it.
What was your first
couples
one?
therapy? It was listening, Pat.
Communication. Writing that one down.
Yeah. Busted, man. Fantastic.
I know I'm bad at communication. It's one
no,
of the
now
things,
we all do.
It's one of the things that we talk about a lot is communication
I
between.
wish we could communicate about other things besides me not being a good communicator. So your 4th one, you said, is
Family support.
family support. And whenever she's loving on the kids, being there for the kids, their needs are met, they're taken care of, they're buttoned up, you breathe a sigh of relief, and it feels good inside.
Yeah.
You know, earlier Chelsea mentioned that she really liked your father.
Yeah.
She was close to him.
Yep.
Was that nourishing for you to sort of know that they get along and she loves your family?
Yeah, absolutely.
It means a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that if you said, hey, we're going to my family for Christmas, and she was like, great, let's do it. Oh, I love your family. It means a lot to you. It like really warms your soul.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, that's great. Like,
My mom was one of 6, you know, and my dad was one of 6. So
yeah. And you're one of 4, aren't you?
one of 3.
3,
Well,
you're 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So big families.
Yeah.
So for you, when
Yeah.
she loves on my family, loves on my people,
Means
that's
a
loving
lot.
on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So let's flip it around. What do you think her number 4 is?
Family support.
It's a good guess.
No.
Shakes it off. What is your 4th one?
Sexual fulfillment.
Sexual
So,
fulfillment.
one step
So it
higher.
showed up.
Yeah.
It was one higher than you thought.
One higher than I thought.
There you go. It's going to be a good trip, buddy. Yeah, your odds just increased 20%. That's how the math works. So, we are in a radio show, so you can share as much as you feel comfortable sharing, but I want to ask that question of what sexual fulfillment looks like. What does it look like in your life whenever, you know what, this need is being met? I feel loved by his advances, and I feel good about it.
I'm trying to figure out a good way to say this because, I feel like we've never had bad sex. It's always
Sex
very
life is good.
fulfilling sex. And
Okay.
it's 99% of the times, more than just fucking. It's
Right.
making love, I guess.
There's a whole experience to it.
Yeah.
So it actually is a very fulfilling sex
Yeah.
life, which I'm glad I asked, because sometimes that answer is, well, not all the sex is fulfilling, right? And then their answer might be 50% of the time, which is important to learn, right? Because for us to say, hey, teach us about the 50% that's good, and to hear that, let the mate hear that, so we can be writing it down, okay, hold on. You're at 99%, dude. That's a fantastic batting average.
No, it's great.
So, thank you for elaborating on that.
Yeah.
That's very good.
I think
So that helps.
I have online communities on Facebook groups and stuff. One of my communities broke off into a smaller community, and it's sex positive focused. And I think there's been a dramatic increase in the fulfillment of our sex life, being able to talk to others openly and not having it be this
taboo thing.
Yeah.
Everyone does it.
Right.
Why are we so taboo about
100% of our parents have done this.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how the species continues.
And why have bad sex?
Right. It's the one thing we have control over.
Yeah.
So you guys, it seems like, at least from your side of the table here, I hear you saying, we have a really healthy sex life, and I'm really good with it. We're open about it. We talk about it. It's not this secret thing. We're not ashamed of it.
I mean,
I have a much
higher
drive.
sex drive than I do.
Sure.
And so that's where it might not be like totally.
Sure, there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
But at least from your side of the table,
Yeah.
you're good. Like
Yeah.
that part of your need is well addressed.
Yes.
Very good. So that was your number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then we already knew your number 4, Patrick. You guys are now keeping score. So we'll flip it around. And since I just ended on you, let's go to your number 3. So now we're getting up to those top ones. On my math, the first one's $1, next one's $5. So I think this is a $10 need.
Yeah.
So,
$10.
We put it up there with like, hey, there's like oxygen, air. This is like a food need. Like I can't go a long time without this. I need this kind of regularly. What is this need for you?
Oh, you want me to just answer it?
Yeah. Oh, no, wait. Oh, hold on. What do you think it is, Pat?
Financial support?
Financial support. What do you think, Chelsea?
Ding, ding, ding.
He got one! Bingo!
I got the 1.
You're winning. It's 1-0. So tell me what that looks like whenever this need is being addressed.
I mean, I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
So Pat is 100% our provider and has been for probably 90% of our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
When we had kids, like I said, we were young and in college. You can't get a real job without a degree.
Right.
So it didn't make, I couldn't get a job to pay for childcare. So it just made, it was the only real option. And knowing that he has always done that and can do that and I think he's proud of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just makes me feel safe. Know that there's stability and that never having to worry about are we going to have to run up our credit cards this month or
right. Especially when you have kids.
Yeah.
You feel vulnerable. But for you, that's a third level need. You look, hey, this is meaningful to me.
Yeah,
and
because
trust me, every time payday comes, I'm feeling in love with you. Thank you for taking care of us.
Yeah, because I don't contribute. I mean, I do contribute to household,
of course,
but I just financially don't. And
right.
so to know that he is willing to do that for us, because we've had
you
talks.
Receive it as love.
I'm 3 classes away from finishing my degree. I stopped right before I stopped when our dads got diagnosed. So taking a little break, but to know that there's no pressure that I need to do this. And I do need to finish my degree, but I don't need to have a job and it's not going to be,
it's not going to be an issue for me.
right?
Right. What's your degree going to be in?
Creative writing.
Ooh, cool. Very cool.
Useless, but
no, I think it's fantastic. That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Good.
It's fun.
You're almost there.
Almost
3
there.
more. You get to ring the bell. So very cool. And before we even pivot to you, Pat, how did that feel just now? Kind of hearing her talk about that.
I mean,
she's kind of riffing on how great you are, dude. That feels good, right?
No, it's something that we talk about and that we've talked about. So.
I mean, when I got pregnant with my son, my father, when I called to tell him, he was his response was, is this a good thing? It wasn't.
He didn't know how to read it.
Yeah, and so and I, of course, I waited a long time to tell my dad this because he's very religious, and I knew that he wouldn't be very. And it was his first grandchild too.
Oh wow!
So, when that happened, my dad also said that since I was pregnant, I was no longer welcome to be on his health insurance.
Oh my gosh!
Yep.
So
that is a very ironic thing for him to have said.
Yeah.
Yep.
That seems like the wrong thing to say.
Yep. He's not my problem.
Hey, you're about to be healthcare vulnerable. Let's go ahead and take away the insurance.
Yep.
Okay. So he was disappointed.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And so it, like Pat had said earlier, he had just gotten his big boy job, and by the time my dad got me off of his insurance was exactly the 90-day mark that he was eligible.
So you guys got married, brought on the insurance.
Went on to town hall, right?
Yeah.
Got
a
officially
lot of people
married.
don't know that we officially got married August 14th, but we celebrate when we had a ceremony in October.
Okay, yeah, but your legal day was a different day.
Yeah, we don't celebrate it.
No,
but
the insurance mattered.
Yeah.
So getting on board.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was back in the dark days of pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
Which we're heading back to. Thanks, Trump. But I get that point. So that financial support for you is deeply meaningful.
Yeah.
And it's not something that's lost on you. And so you do feel like that need's very well met.
Yeah.
That's a third highest need. That's no joke.
Yeah.
So, what do you think his third highest need is? Now, no pressure, but he got yours.
I know I got it wrong anyway.
Okay, take a shot.
Domestic support.
Wait a minute. That was 4.
That was my $1.
That's,
number 5.
So
yeah,
you can pick.
what...
No, you don't have to tell me what you originally
wrote.
No, you can use deduction and figure it out. Yeah, you can take a guess.
Yes. Okay, hold on. Give me a second.
She's like following the rules. No. You don't have to stick to that.
When she picked up a pen, you yelled at her and told her not to change her stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I did. I meant your side. Yeah, that's true. I did do that. Thank you, Jacob. I need Jacob to come referee all of my therapy sessions. He'll just be sitting there across the room and all of a sudden be like, hey, just real quick, you're wrong, Jim. Thanks.
Then, yeah, I would think that number 3 is going to be attractive mate.
Okay.
Which I put as number 5.
Okay, yeah, you had guessed it earlier. So, what do you think? Number 3?
Affection.
Huh.
Very good. What does it look like in your relationship whenever this need's being met?
Compliments, words of affirmation. Her just telling me that I'm doing a good job. That's huge, right?
Unprovoked, right?
Right.
Coming to you and just volunteering praise.
But it's your number 1 love language. How is it not your $100?
You'll see, because needs are different than languages.
Yeah, it's split out differently.
It is split out differently. Think about it differently. Ha, ha, ha. All right, so very good. So we've gotten to level 3. So let's go to, so the next one's going to be Pat is going to reveal, but first Chelsea gets to guess. So Chelsea, what do you think his number 2 is?
Sexual fulfillment.
Yep.
Nailed it.
Yep.
She got one.
1 to 1.
Ding, ding, ding. So we had asked this question of Chelsea, what does it look like for her? And she said, for the most part, I am very fulfilled. But, that's not always the case all of the time. So for you, Pat, what does it look like when you are sexually fulfilled?
That's a great question. My appetite is huge, right? So anytime it's met, is it getting fulfilled? But I want more than she can deliver.
There's a high need. Yeah, there's a high need. So you have high libido.
Yes.
Yeah, and Chelsea seems to be able to laugh about it. It seems like it's okay.
Yeah.
You've made peace.
Yeah, we did have an unplanned baby, so I guess.
Yeah, right.
The evidence is kind of there.
Yeah.
The evidence is kind of there. Yeah, okay. So, right now, if you had to give a letter grade to your sex life, A, B, C, D, E, F, there is no E. And I was a teacher once. Not anymore, thank goodness. What would you say the current score is?
I think a B+.
Okay.
I think it's gotten a lot
Really?
better from when we first started dating, and now that you're in your sex positive group, I think I have seen a huge impact from you just talking with other people. And
it's like a don't yuck my yum type of group, and everyone is very open talking about there's just such a huge range of people's in their group too.
Right, it's their preferences, their kinks,
their
all
kinks,
of that.
and just talking about hey, I've had sex once this year. That's okay for them.
Yeah.
But or hey, I had sex one time today and I'm still not fulfilled. And so
right.
Hearing,
there's no judgment.
Yeah, and just being able to talk about that and I don't know, they give so many amazing reviews for books and I think you mentioned
The Ethical Slut.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Come As You Are is a
right.
really great book and that I recommend. And then Oh My God, Yes. Have you heard of
yes.
that?
Yeah. Very good.
And
so you've been motivated to dive deeper into this part of yourself. You wanted to understand it. You wanted to be encouraging of it. And Pat, you're saying it's made a difference for us.
It's made a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's made a difference. Before she got involved in the sex positive kind of mindset, she didn't have the same level of intimacy with you.
Right.
But now she's more enthusiastic about it. She's reading about it. You're thinking about it. Yeah. Has it increased your libido?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about it more.
Post, not necessarily everybody, but there is a positive body image thread where people, they don't necessarily have to even be sexy photos, but hey,
right.
I felt really good in this outfit
today. They encourage each other. Right.
And just that type of stuff. Because I mean, if you're love language isn't words of affirmation. Like, someone tells you look good, like, did you really mean that? Like,
Right.
That's what she
are
does
you
to
saying,
me all the time.
are you saying that because you
Are you-
don't want me to, like, give you the death stare?
So let me dig into that a little bit. So I kind of think I hear you saying that when you receive praise on your looks, you doubt it.
Yeah.
It's hard for you to believe what you're being told.
Yeah.
And Pat, you kind of were saying, yeah, she does that. And I
Yep.
try to tell her how pretty she is and how much I like
Yeah.
her, but she doesn't believe it. Doesn't feel true.
Yeah.
Is that something that's always been the case in your life, or is it something that's more recent?
Like, on and off, like, I was always the fat kid. Also had undiagnosed exercise-induced asthma for a long time. But, and then when Pat and I met, I was incredible. I was, like, at my thinnest. And then, like, when I got pregnant with my son, I was at my heaviest I'd ever been. And then you add another 40 pounds. And then before I had my daughter, I was really thin. And then last year when I started trying all the different medications, I went from being like at a really great, healthy weight for me that I felt good in to now I'm probably about 40 or 50 pounds where I'd like to be. And so like I don't day to day necessarily feel good in my skin and trying to dress my body in a way that I think will look good.
But, you know, you bring up a good point, and this is something I think a lot of couples don't appreciate the complexity of, but I'm glad we're talking about it, is that sometimes it isn't that our mate doesn't want to have sex with us, it's that they don't feel good, and they don't feel attractive, and the libido starts to go down because they're having, like, this sense of insecurity and shame, and it's ironic, right, because the other mate is saying, no, like, I really want to hit that.
Right,
Like, you know, like, can we please?
Please.
I don't know what I need to say to you to convince you. And there's this great irony because you're really powerless because it isn't your eyes that need to change. It's hers.
I don't even know how to talk about it.
And it's how do you fix that? And I'm so glad you talk about it openly, Chelsea, because one of the ways that you found to fix that was to surround yourself with more voices. Voices that have good ideas, voices that understand what they're talking about, and to challenge your own perception of yourself. And that's been really healthy for you. Yeah. And healthy for the marriage.
Yeah. I mean, it's still something that, like, I struggle with, but, like, I'm giving myself a pass for the next
I think we earned it. Yeah.
That's something we're still working on.
Yeah.
And I love your honesty. And I'm really grateful that you shared that. I really am, because I think a lot of couples can relate. And it's so tricky because then they're like, why is our love life not strong? We want each other. But then it's an internal thing, and how can you fix that? How do you rescue that?
And, like, in middle school, like, I struggled with eating disorders. And so, like, my, like, body, and, like, how I view myself has always been skewed. Yeah. Like, even when I'm thin, there's always something. And then it's just never right.
You know, you and we have, like, Jim's neurotic bingo card. I feel like you and I could play the game. Because, I don't know, you guys have heard me talk about it, but, like, there's very rarely a thing we bring up that I'm like, oh, no, I've personally gone through that. Like, like, you know, the weight thing, you know, where you lose a bunch of weight, and then you look at yourself and you're like, who is this? And this feels unnatural, too. And everybody's like, you look great. And you're like, and it doesn't feel right.
To, like, back to the weight thing, like, also, like, Pat and I had lost a bunch of weight together. We had gained some back, and then Pat has now lost all of it and then some. And so Pat's at a really great weight, and he looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Like,
soak it in, buddy. Take
words of affirmation.
There it is.
Yeah, no, like, literally, he's
you can hear the cha-ching in his bank.
Yeah, right.
He's wearing a belt because his pants won't stay up. Like.
Right.
And so, like, that's hard because, like, damn, men and losing weight much easier than women.
It is.
And then I think part of, like, my weight gain had to do with antidepressants, and I'm still on them. And I think that, I don't know if that's a real thing, if you can blame that, but...
You know, it's a little trumped up. There's a lot of internet myth about it, and I think it's one of those things that Nick would be here talking about correlation and causation.
Yeah.
It's much more likely the case that we are depressed, and so we're not exactly running track.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, I haven't been climbing many mountains lately, and, like... food feels good.
Yeah.
So like it all kind of bubbles together.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting topic. And especially as you try to like, you know, being a young couple and growing up together, there is this, everything's going to change. Our bodies are going to change. Our lives are going to change. Our careers are going to change. Like what we're into, what we're not into, all of this is up for grabs. And so it becomes like this thing where I think I've always been a proponent of saying that I believe couples that marry young, technically it's a risk factor for divorce. But I'm a big fan that I believe in a lot of ways it could be turned into a huge strength. Yeah. Because you grow up together.
That's the thing about it.
Yeah.
Next year we'll have dated for like 10 years. And I'm turning 30 this year.
That's a third of our lives. We've been together.
Yeah.
So we were kids. Like, when we met.
And there's a power to that, to realize, wow, what history we have.
Yeah, and just like like we talked about, my dad was not happy about the pregnancy, and just like his family, there was definitely talks, never to us, but that they thought that I intentionally got pregnant to trap Patrick. And so
we call that a gotcha pregnancy.
Yeah. And
which I don't get, because I was a lifeguard. Well, I just got
he just got, like, we had been talking about rings, and like I kept like, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm like, let's go.
You guys have been married or dating for years
2 years,
at that point,
and we'd
living
been living
with each other
for like a year and a half.
Right.
I kind of took over his man cave, but
that will happen. Yeah, interesting history there. You know, it's a shame we only get one visit. You know, every time you guys come back to Vegas, it's still a little therapy while you're
there. Yeah, right.
Let's take it to number 2. I want to make sure that we don't leave the listeners in suspense, because we're all building up to number 1. So we'll get past the guessing part. Chelsea, what's your number 2? What's your second highest need?
Family support.
Family support. And how do you see that need being met in your life? When it's being met, what does it look like?
Like us spending time together and like doing activities as a family, even just like me being able to decompress when he gets home, and him being able to like come home and really just like turn on dad mode and like be there for the kids. And just like, we worked together when we met with kids, and so I've always known how fantastic he was with kids, which sometimes it's weird when men's good with kids.
Yeah, I get it. It's not a stereotype of men is that we're going to be good with kids, but for you, it's very attractive.
Yeah, and so I always knew he'd be a fantastic dad, and he's just like blown out of the water. Like our son is like clone of him, like cool. Baby photos, like age photos.
And I'm a clone of my father.
Yeah,
and I hear him every time I open my mouth and say something to the kids.
Oh yeah, a couple years ago, his dad was putting old family videos onto like from the tapes, digital format, and so he was playing some, and I was like,
that sounded like him.
It sounded exactly like my husband.
That's interesting.
It was crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah. So the fact that he's all about family, and it's interesting because that turned out to be a high need for both of you.
Yeah.
You both feel loved when you see the other loving your people. Yep. That makes you feel loved.
Yeah.
What's your number 2, Pat?
Sexual fulfillment.
Okay. Did I already cover that one?
Yeah.
So that was our number 2s. All right. So now we're at tier 1. Okay. Let's start with Pat. Pat, what's your number 1?
Affirmation.
Affirmation. Yeah. Okay. And I suspect that Chelsea could have guessed that one. She probably thought that was it.
Oh, I did put affirmation.
You got it.
I couldn't read your handwriting.
Yeah, told you. Jim, what's this thing with the eagle head? Oh, yeah, that's hieroglyphics. That's how I spell things. So affirmation, and then what does it look like for you when it's being met?
Her just saying, like, hearing her saying some of those things.
You're going to walk out of here on cloud 9.
Yeah, right.
This is great.
Hearing her talking
therapy every week. This is fantastic.
Right?
Okay.
Like, hearing her say those things, that really means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's what carries you through. Okay, my dear, what is your number 1?
Affection.
Affection. Very good. Now, what does it look like whenever this need is being met?
Just like us sitting together, like on the couch, like we don't, it's like not like a physical touch, but like me just having my legs on him and just like being close, or like holding hands and
snuggling on the
couch, making sure that like I always get a kiss before he goes to work, and like kiss first thing when he comes home. Usually the kids run up to him and I go, "What, am I chopped meat?"
Yeah. They ran. This
is true.
But that affection for you is like any time that there's that human contact. It could be non-sexual. It could just be, just a love nudge. It could be touching. It could be hugging, little things like that.
And gifts too. Like that's one of the, gifts.
Yeah, little items that just demonstrate love. Little love gifts. Okay. So, again, this bigger picture here. So, here we are. We're doing this simulated therapy, which, in real life, whenever we're having that first session, we're learning who the couple is. Yep. And we are learning, like, how did you meet? How about the kids? What's the family look like? And learning about needs is very realistic because as a therapist, we're trying to figure out what are their dynamics and what we're really looking for whenever we really do this kind of activity with somebody. We're trying to figure out how happy are you? Because as people reveal, we ask that question, what does it look like when this need is met? And so, we're teaching each other how to love us, so we're trying to teach you how to communicate more, right? Yeah. So, we're already, simulating that. In this case, I mean simulate in the sense that we're teaching people to practice it. And then we're also trying to increase awareness because we're hoping people walk out of there and think, okay, they literally gave me clues on how to win this game. They taught me how to do it. I hope I was listening because all the clues were there, right? Yeah. And so, it starts that conversation differently. A lot of times when people approach couples therapy, they start with what's wrong, what's missing. And something you may have heard on the show is that, I think Nick practices from this perspective, but I definitely do. I take on something called solution-focused brief therapy, which means I'm always interested in what does it look like when your problem isn't there. And how do we do more copy and paste of that, right? Because I can fill up your life with all the solutions if we find them and we replicate them.
Yeah, right.
And so that's kind of, again, solution-focused brief therapy is not designed to be in one session. But I'm setting the record today, going for it. But that's kind of the angle I thought I'd take with us today, was learning about you, your story, hearing about some of the things that have happened in the last year, about the loss, allowing the stage to be set for that so we can get a feel for who you are, and then also kind of taking us through that navigation path of saying, hey, here's a fun little exercise. It kind of increases awareness. Have you guys ever heard of an app called Love Nudge?
Nope.
I have homework for you.
Okay.
All right. So let me sell you on this thing. It's free, but so it's very common that whenever I have couples that are starting to work on this, when they begin couples therapy, I usually tell them I want you to download Love Nudge. Okay, it works on any system. And basically how it works is it makes you do the 5 love languages test, right? So you'll retest. So, it'll retest you. And then essentially what it does is it links your 2 apps together. It has a code that it sends from one to the other. You can see your partner's scores, so you know what their love languages are. Cool. You guys already had that. Yeah. Here's where it gets interesting. It then opens up an entire mall of suggestions to meet that need.
Oh, wow. That's
so
really cool.
So let's say you have affirmation. Yeah. It will give you 50 different ideas for ways that somebody might do this.
That's great.
Then you can select those items, and you can tell the app, remind me to do that once a week. Remind me to do this one once a month. Remind me to do this one 4 times a year. So, for instance, one of them, I use this with my wife all the time. My wife has not figured it out yet. But every other Friday, I send cookies to her school. And she always is like, thank you, that was so nice. She has not figured it out. That it just mysteriously keeps happening every other Friday.
Yeah.
Because that's when the app reminds me.
That's great.
I've told it, tell me to do it every 2 weeks. And it pops up as a notification. It's like, buy cookies. And I'm like, oh. So I call the cookie place. I'm like, send cookies. And they're like, here you go. And it took me 30 seconds on the way to work, right? But I'm hero for a day when I get home.
Yeah, everybody's that was great.
When you set these little reminders, now we have this intention. I want to love my mate. I want to show them love. I want to fill them up. How do I do that? This allows us to sort of become more scheduled about it, but not have it be so methodical or robotic that it doesn't feel genuine. Yeah. Because you can always just say no. The notification comes up, it's like, no.
Wait, I'm confused. You said that you have to attach the app together. Did your wife not do it? Did you fill it for her?
Eventually she did download it. Yeah, but for a long time I just had it and I was just using it because it doesn't have to be used with your mate. Here's the benefit of having your mate do it. Eventually I did tag her in on this, and so now but it doesn't notify her about my notifications.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if she thought about it long enough, she'd probably realize buy cookies is one of the suggestions in the app, and I'm doing it every 2 weeks. But it hasn't occurred to her yet that I'm still doing this. Yeah. So today was my off week, by the way. Next week I have to buy cookies. But here's another thing that's interesting about the app. So not only does it have this mall of suggestions, not only does it allow you to set reminders for yourself, and then it feels like a video game, Pat, because you get credit. It's like achievements whenever
I
you're
work
doing
in software, so
you get this. Yeah. So I've become really competitive with it because the app keeps track of how often I'm meeting my end of the bargain.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
you
Jim,
get
you're under.
analysis.
It's almost like steps. It's almost like, hey, Jim, you need to get up. And I'm like, buy cookies. And so like, I'm really aggressive about it. So I'm like, I'm going to win. And then, so that's one thing, is it gives you this like line graph to tell you, here's what you did last month. And here's how you're doing this month. And you can look at it and go, wow, I can tangibly know I am doing less for my spouse than I used to do, right? Okay. But here's the $1 million application of this that I love. You can score your mate. Okay. So you can give them a feedback and say, the app calls it a love tank, like a gas tank. And it'll say, my love tank is this % full, all the way up to 100. So I spent like 2 weeks just jamming this app, right? Trying to like put in as many things as I could. And then I told my wife, oh, you should download the app, by the way. And so she was like, oh, okay. And so she downloads the app. And then I think she started connecting some dots. And she was like, oh. So I was waiting patiently to find out what her love tank was going to be at. And then all of a sudden I get a notification and it's like, Janelle updated her tank. And I'm like, and I get in there, it's like 90%. And I'm like, hell yeah, it is.
I'm doing it.
This guy winning. I'm winning the game.
Yeah, there you go.
But it's interesting, right? Because from time to time I can nudge her. It's why it's called Love Nudge, and tell her, hey, I need a need met. Like, take a look. Or I can say, hey, update your love tank. I want to know where we stand.
Yeah.
And, you know, she doesn't have to wait for a nudge. She can just do it. And if she changes it, let's say it drops to 70%. That's a passive signal to me, because my app will alert me and say, hey, she changed it. And I can pull it up and go, oh, it's come down 10%. Now, that doesn't mean I did anything wrong. I have to fill it up. Right. It's a tank of gas. Like it goes away as you put miles on the car, right?
Yeah.
So I need to be perpetually adding to it. So Love Nudge, I want you guys to practice with that. It's a fun thing to do. Great. You're in Vegas. It's an awesome opportunity to like have all sorts of adventures. You're going to be investing in your marriage. That's huge. To be here without the kids is gigantic.
It's our first trip ever without
What are you guys
kids.
planning on doing? What are you guys going to do for yourselves this weekend?
We're seeing Piff tonight.
You guys are going to see Piff.
Yes,
we're going to the VIP show.
I don't know if you guys knew this, but I was on his podcast.
Yeah.
Very briefly. He has no idea who I am. I was drunk at Scoop Fest, and Matt called me in and threw a mic. And I was like, I think I was talking to some guy on the phone. I was like, what were your dreams? And then I passed out. I don't remember what I did. But apparently I was on the show, so that was a lot of fun. So you guys are going to see Piff?
Yes.
What else are you guys up to?
Went to the
We went to the...
You guys did that last night?
Soleil.
Oh, wow. You guys saw Cirque?
Yeah. My
Very
brother got
cool.
us tickets for
Awesome.
it.
Very cool. So you guys are checking out shows.
Yeah.
You guys are doing world-renowned pod therapy.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
It's
Yeah.
a huge deal. And now
We're
you guys
in the churn.
You guys are hitting, you're in the churn. You got to meet the real Jacob Smith.
Yep.
Yes.
Actually, that's the wax mannequin. That's the one we get on loan from ICS on the weekends. So the real one's somewhere doing things.
Yeah, right.
You should go see his show. What's your little show called again? What's that thing?
It's Absinthe.
Oh, yeah.
Absinthe at Caesar's Palace.
It starts with an A.
It's one of the ones that I told you.
You have to
look at.
Google it. It's hard to find.
Yeah, it's a tiny little thing.
It's the secret that nobody knows
No,
about,
it came up on the Vegas.com or whatever to
Yeah.
like shows. It was up there.
You should check it out. And if you see Jacob, apparently you're supposed to throw things at him. I don't know how this works.
Oh, is this what you were telling me about last night?
No, Piff.
Wants people
No,
to throw fish at
fish.
Matt. Yeah.
At Matt.
Just at Matt.
Just at Matt.
So I'm going to bring...
Pat was saying
Matt.
Very specifically.
Pat was saying that tonight we should throw a fish at him.
Throw fish?
At Piff.
At Piff.
Yeah.
You might get dragged out by a bouncer.
Yeah, right,
I don't know if
exactly,
Piff's in
yeah.
on the gag. Piff might not like his own medicine.
You'll see Matt.
Yeah?
Oh,
Is
is he
he-
the
You'll
opener?
see, you'll see Matt with Piff tonight.
Oh,
Oh,
great.
awesome.
That's awesome.
Stop
Yeah.
by, get some sardines, man.
That's awesome.
If you get sushi, just ask them. They'll just give it to you. I like mine extremely medium rare.
Right.
That's
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How did you guys feel at Jim's when he just like was suddenly blatantly racist and then just moved on?
The whole part that we edited out? You mean the 5 minutes of racism?
When he mentioned like, how do you feel with this N-word rage?
I know.
I was like, that's
can't
just
believe
N-word.
it.
That's just racist, Jim. That's horrible.
We're going to have to cut this from the audio. Jacob's going to have to
my
do work
goodness.
this time.
N-word rage. Like that's two horrible things. And just, oh my goodness,
This
Jim.
is why we don't let you caption the show. This is
Jim's
exactly
N-word
why.
rage.
This N-word rage is out of control. He comes out with this N-word
Oh,
rage.
that's horrible.
Well, I didn't diagnose you today, but, N-word rage is in the DSM-5. So, again, Board of Examiners, this was not real. Also, I definitely said inward rage, just for the record.
He said it again.
No hate mail. Well, guys, this has been so much fun. So exciting to
great.
have you guys. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Thank you for being willing to participate.
Yeah.
Thank you for using your relationship today and your true life stories as an opportunity for other people to learn. And I want to make sure we take a second because, you know, you're on the mic, you're mental health advocates. You're here in part to teach people.
Yep.
It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And, you know, I just want you to, in your own mind, as you think about all the folks that listen to the show that might be at home and having heard this, do you have a message for them on Mental Health Month about, you know, getting help for themselves? And Chelsea, you've been bold, and today you've told a lot of truth about your own struggles. I think that's incredibly courageous. I think it inspires other people, and I want to make sure that we take a second to give them a message if you have anything directly to say to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, like, everyone should do couples therapy. We've never done it before, but it's like on like
Mazel tov.
Yeah,
well,
right.
not that this is, but we've never done it. But it's been one of those things that like I think everyone should do, especially if they have a good relationship, because that's when the people who end up with divorces are like blindsided because they're like, I thought everything was great, but if you're not checking in with each other, making sure needs are met, then like all of a sudden, like things can explode. And obviously everyone gets married for a reason. Most of the time it's because that they love each other.
Right.
So at some point something was there. I understand divorce. There are many, many very good reasons to get one. Yeah. But a lot of times, like, I think it's disconnect.
If it's not what you want, there's a way to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the best advice our pastor who married us said was like, marriage is the hardest thing you're ever going to do. It is hard work. And you just have to remember that like any job, you like really need to put in the effort. You want that promotion. Like you want to keep going.
Yeah. Good advice. Pat, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
No, I think to what you're saying, like the premarital counseling that we did was super effective. Like learning how to communicate with her and learning how I communicate. I think taking that and we continue to do it every day, right?
Yeah.
Like we remind each other of things.
Love language quiz. Everybody go online, do it.
Yeah. Download Love Nudge. Yeah. You take the test. But, you know, I think this will probably be my last point on the topic, but one of the things that I'll often do whenever I get to visit with couples where, you know, we're struggling, you know, things aren't working out very well, I'll show them a graph from one of my books, and the graph compares happiness. So people actually rated their happiness in their relationship. And it compares two sets of couples, people who married for romantic love. They dated, they met at the lifeguard station, they moved in together, they were smitten, they started a family, and then it compares arranged marriages. People that were basically assigned to each other by their families, and they approached it very differently. And what that study shows and what that graph reveals is that in the very beginning, romantic marriages for the first 2 years are significantly happier than the arranged marriages who were at their lowest point. But then over time, romantic marriages often go down and then sharply decrease at 7 years. 5 to 7 years is whenever it sharply drops, and then it goes pretty low on average. Whereas arranged marriages continue to go up and up and up until they are almost at about 5 to 7 years where the romantic marriages began. And when
That's
I
incredible.
show that to people, it's shocking.
Yeah,
they're like,
It
that
makes
can't be it.
so much sense.
But as a long-term married couple, you know that does make sense. Why does that make sense?
Because you have to put in work. Like, you have to make it work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
And the arranged marriages take that seriously.
Yeah.
They don't think that this all accidentally happened. They're
No,
trained.
they have to put in work.
Take
to
it
learn.
seriously. Their families come to them and say, learn how to be a good husband. And
Yeah.
you're, okay, I take this. It's like game time.
Yeah, right.
I'm out of the tunnel. I'm going to do this.
learn what each other enjoy doing or what they need to do to be happy. And
Yes. Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining Pod Therapy. Thank you for
Thanks so
being
much
here.
for having
I'm
us.
sorry Nick couldn't make it. You know,
Yeah.
he's lazy. Apparently
His
he
loss.
works. Yeah, that's right. It's his loss. Apparently he's working on Fridays. I've been getting away with murder. I've like episode after episode lately. I've been doing it without Nick. I just bash him every time. It's funny because you guys get it, but those therapists I was meeting with, they were horrified. I saw Emma in the hallway and she's like, "Hey, did Nick ever hear you do that?" And I was like, A, Nick is definitely not listening.
Yep.
If he's not in the room. And B, he wouldn't be surprised. I say it to his face. So.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your trip in Las Vegas.
Thank
and I hope you
you.
guys get back to Massachusetts safely.
yes.
Thanks so much,
you.
guys.
Thank you.